aspects of that post-resurrection period. Now, when we look at the amount of time that is given to us, and I was looking to see here, and I don't think that they do. It's too bad they don't sort of include, for the fun of it, what is said in Acts in regards to the ascension. They only give you Luke. They don't give. Well, that's interesting. They give you 1 Corinthians 15, section 361. That's interesting, but they didn't go into Acts. There is a lengthy period of time between the resurrection and then the ascension where Jesus is ministering to the disciples. Now, if you look at how many pages we have left, we could easily read them in a matter of moments. And if I, for example, were just to take the time to write up what I did yesterday with any level of detail, it would be much longer than what we have here. So, obviously, we have a very, very selected amount of material that each of the authors is giving to us. And so, what they're trying to do is, each one is trying to communicate one particular aspect of the post-resurrection appearance. Now, obviously, people might want to ask the question, well, why not have a full recitation? I mean, how wonderful would it be if we could have, for example, just the discussion that Jesus had with the disciples when he opened their minds to understand the Scriptures, and how he was prophesied from Moses through all the prophets and so on and so forth. That would be worth having a 28th book in the New Testament. We could get along with an even thicker ESV study Bible. You know, I mean, it would be okay. They could bind those extra pages in there. That'd be all right. And so part of us wants to have more. And most of us have never really thought through, well, you know, why is it that you have all this material from before and so little of material after the period of the resurrection in the Gospels? And I think that's something to reflect upon. I don't know that I have a specific answer for you, as you know, I'm not going to pretend to know what God's purposes were in inspiring X amount of material here and Y amount of material there, or something along those lines. I am simply recognizing the fact that as the Gospels exist, as we have them, and clearly as they were written, because there's absolutely no evidence that there was anything other than these that was written or distributed amongst people or anything else, it's very, very clear that the authors do not intend to give a extensive, chronological, in-depth discussion of Jesus' personal ministry to his disciples after his resurrection. They just don't do it. Luke and John give us a fair amount of material, but it's obviously very focused upon one particular aspect of things. And it's a different aspect. John's talking especially about the interaction between Jesus and the women, and then you've got the whole situation with Jesus and Peter and John chapter 21 and things like that. Luke, very focused upon Jesus' interaction with the disciples as to opening their minds to understand the Scriptures and the fulfillment of prophecy and things like that. Matthew doesn't give us a whole lot of anything. He skips almost all that stuff. And as a result, what we need to recognize is to expect them to be focusing upon the same thing. There just isn't enough material to even begin to substantiate that kind of assumption. They're focusing upon different time periods and different places. Some of the ministry that's focused upon is right there in Jerusalem. Some is on a mountainside in Galilee. Some is, Luke primarily focuses upon what happens right that day of the resurrection and the disciples en road to Emmaus. And they're giving an exceptionally fragmentary portion. I personally would speculate that the reason for this is that this is being written during the lifetime of eyewitnesses themselves. And so this was leaving room in the church for the testimony of those individuals who themselves had encountered the risen Lord. I don't know. It doesn't say, we are going to really give you a lot of information about what came before the cross and a small amount of information afterwards. Obviously, we get more outside of the Gospels. Luke obviously thought it was important enough to write all of Acts, though I think one of the best theories I've heard for the origination of Luke Acts, which of course originally circulated as primarily a single work, and then got cut up when Luke was primarily put with the Gospels, and the Gospels were distributed as a body. But the best theory I've ever heard for the origination of Luke Acts is that this was Luke's, well, you know what an amicus brief is? The filing of a friend of the court. This was Luke's demonstration or submission in Paul's imprisonment as to what it was that he was preaching and the origination of the Christian movement and what the lordship of Jesus Christ was really all about. That would explain why it ends where it ends. And it doesn't give us. We all want to know, so what happened at the end of Paul's imprisonment? Did he get to go to Spain? And did he get to do this? Did he get to do that? And we don't know. Which would make sense if the reason it was written was to be presented to Caesar, and here's the story of this man, and here's why he does what he does, and here's the Christian message, and so on and so forth. But anyway, the point is that these documents only want to give us a very narrow slice of what took place after the resurrection of Christ. And so when we try to force them to be exhaustive accounts, then it's real easy to accuse them of not so much contradiction, but as just being completely out of harmony with one another. And so the general argument is, well, in one gospel, they just immediately go to Galilee.